Okay, I want this video to be funny and enjoyable, but I need to start it in a serious way. Yes, I'm fully aware of the reputation this film has garnered itself over the last year and a half or so. But I did not watch this in support of the people who did those horrible things. I watched it instead for the suit makers, the composers, the rest of the VFX artists, everybody else who did good work on this, who were passionate and put their hard work and effort and most importantly their time into doing this project, that I feel that's worth seeing. For the bad actions of only a couple people on this entire huge project to completely discredit all the work that they did, that's not cool, man. That's not cool. So yes, I watch it for them, not to support the people that did those bad things. So yeah, serious part out of the way, let's jump on in. So we open with shots of New York City accompanied with Peter's narration, which is being recorded on tape, and this is the primary form of narration that comes throughout the entire film, which is a very interesting choice, I'll give them that. He's swinging around, he's doing his Spider-Man thing, the music is absolutely bopping, using that 90s Spider-Man theme, and he's chasing down the speeding car, and a couple thugs surround out the car, they have a back and forth, there's a little fight, and then we see Also, I really gotta say, the costume so far in this, mwah, fantastic job. Also, just a heads up, I'm not gonna do much praising of this film, so I'm gonna keep a counter in the corner for a silly sound effect every time I do, which is probably gonna be a very low number considering the runtime of this film. Peter then goes to hang out with Harry, MJ, and Gwen, but he's a little late as usual, so he missed the entire damn event. We get some other dynamic before Harry gives Peter some advice on his plan to propose to Gwen, which he doesn't do, by the way. Gwen then fucking dies because she's Gwen Stacy. Lol, imagine being Gwen and dead. This message was sponsored by the Living Gwen gang. The intro credits here is actually really good. Like, this art is gorgeous and the music is definitely popping off once again. We then get Peter being depressed because this is an adaptation of Spider-Man Blue, and even takes out his pain on MJ of all people. Before she leaves, she gives him a letter to go to Spider-Man, which, by the way, it's kind of implied that she knows he's Spider-Man, but The letter's from a child named Tim who's terminally ill and just wants to meet his hero. But Peter says fuck that kid and just stuffed the letter in his pocket because he's too sad to deal with that right now. Oh yeah, everybody is sad, by the way, including Harry, who's been gone for like a couple weeks, and then Peter just finds passed out on the couch.
Oh, Meow, get up. No, he did. Oh shit, Meow, I thought she was dead.
Yeah, he wakes up, but he's got some substance abuse problems now. He and Peter get into some emotionally charged argument, and Harry leaves, stating how Peter's pushing away everybody who cares about him, despite Harry also doing the exact same thing in this film. Okay then. Peter then experiences a nightmare brought on by his guilt of being unable to save Gwen, which is the through line of the entire movie. Also, while I like the sound design of this scene, the sound mixing is a bit rough, especially on the dialogue. He decides to watch old videos taken of him and his friends, and the grief hits him hard, and okay, I actually admit that the scene was pretty well done, in all honesty. Like, it hit the emotional beat that it was going for. This is what drives him to go back and look at that letter again and finally decide to go visit the kid. Because, I mean, like, Peter, you weren't doing anything else anyway. You were just sitting there being sad. Harry gets a montage of walking around New York City alone and at night and somehow not getting mugged despite being pretty rich, as a cover of a Radiohead song plays in the background because Harry Osborn. Also, I see it. I see that eyeshadow that's gotten messed everywhere. I see it. Y'all, he wears makeup. It's canon. We then transition pretty damn smoothly from a practical shot to a CG one of Spider-Man overlooking the city and going through yet another flashback to the same event, which is what, the third time now this has happened? It's very reoccurring. Another thing that's reoccurring is my wish that the VFX team could have actually had the time to finish all of these shots properly before the project went to trash, because a couple of them are a little janky. But overall, it's still pretty darn great. We're then thrown headfirst into an absolutely brutal fight scene between the Goblin and Spider-Man. Like, damn! Punches are being thrown, shit's exploding and getting on fire. It's absolute madness. One might even say madness combat. Now, I gotta say, the Goblin costume, great. Person inside of it, not so much. But it's a good fight scene as well as reinforcing the themes, especially that of Peter's lingering guilt. Hey, remember how I said everybody's sad? Yeah, that extends to MJ as well. He's currently sitting on a porch outside of a party being hosted by Flash Thompson. Actually, Flash comes out to check on her and basically goes like this.
Oh, do you have the big sad?
No, I'm just kidding. He actually gives her some advice about dealing with everything going on, and then says she goes to find Peter and Harry. Unfortunately, Flash's acting is a bit wonky, but it doesn't detract from the scene all too much. In fact, it's actually pretty sweet. And now we get to the child. His mom is reading him a Spider-Man book, and then boom, the actual Spider-Man shows up. Also, this is low-key what the room I recorded looks like. Tim is flabbergasted. I mean, it's Spider-Man! It's Spider-Man! Oh my gosh, it's Also, this shot over here reminded me of that one scene from The Incredibles. Then we get a whole bunch of scenes of Timmy and Spider-Man interacting, and I gotta say, these are actually, they low-key made me smile. Like, the way that they did these is kind of wholesome, not gonna lie. He looks at a bunch of headlines, he shows off his web shooters, they look at some toys. Peter occasionally points out things such as suits he didn't actually wear. But it's Peter's self-doubt that creeps in that keeps him from fully enjoying the moment, unfortunately. This all comes to a head when Tim asks what actually happened to Gwen Stacy. Then we go back to Harry, who's currently in a graveyard by himself in the rain, thinking and sulking about his shitty dad. Like, Harry, my boy, he treated you like trash. Why are you crying on his grave? We then get another MJW as she comes and fetches the sopping wet cat of a man and takes him out of the rain. Back to Tim and Spidey as he starts talking about what happened, trying to explain it in a more down-to-earth way because 10-year-old child. Peter, blaming himself, says it was his fault, but Tim doesn't believe him because, I mean, like, the Bugle lies all the time. Come on, we know this. And then we get Peter venting to a child. Okay, yes, I know he's explaining that things are a lot more complicated than the black and white scenarios that Tim was used to because he's a kid. I'm trying to explain to him that how a lot of what he knows isn't 100% accurate because things are messy as hell. But my boy was still venting. They get Spider-Man explaining his origin story to Tim in an attempt for him to understand the full weight of everything. You know, the early life, Uncle Ben, the robber, the whole shebang. Everything in this flashback being in black and white except Spider-Man, who's this bright red, is actually a really cool visual. Also, another gorgeous suit. Tim tries to prove to Spidey that he is in fact a hero despite some of the times that he's messed up, and he even tries to show him a scrapbook that he made of his entire career, but Spidey is, say it with me now, too sad to deal with that shit right now. Bro, breaks this little kid's heart, like, damn! This is little Timmy's origin story as a villain. Now we're back with Harry and MJ sitting in a car together as it rains. MJ, rightfully, because she hasn't seen him in a couple of weeks, goes, "Bitch, where the hell you been?" This eventually develops into an emotional talk about identity and dealing with loss, and how the two of them are more similar than they might realize. Also, this is probably the best acted scene in the entire film. Oh, we're back with Peter. He's leaving Tim's room, going downstairs, and then Tim's mom's like, "Yo, what happened?" And he's like, "Oh, I told him what he needed to hear." And Tim's mom's like, "You what?" And calls him out on his bullshit. Saying how, regardless of everything that's ever happened, how many times the Bugle has put slander about him, he's always seen how many people he's saved, and he's always looked up to him as the one thing that keeps him going, as his hero. Peter realizes, damn, you're right, actually, and how it's not really about himself and what he's going through at the moment, but the bigger picture of inspiring the people around him and being the person that people need to believe in. So he goes back, apologizes to Tim, and sits down and lets him go through the scrapbook with him, realizing just how much his heroics have impacted not just this one person's life, but so many others as well, in both negative and positive ways. As he's about to leave, Tim asks one final request from him before he goes, and that's to reveal his true identity. Peter, after a bit of hesitation, does so, and Tim's like, "Yo, wait, you're Peter Parker!" Then they have one last talk about what the identity of Spider-Man means to people before they say their goodbyes. Also, this scene is sad as hell. Like, the way the dialogue's being delivered? Damn. We then get Peter returning to his normal life and his duties as Spider-Man with a renewed sense of self, as well as taking the first few steps on healing from the death of Gwen Stacy. He even makes up with Harry and MJ at the end, so there's a nice neat bow and everything. He then gets invited to Flash Thompson's going away party, but as he's about to enter, his duties as Spider-Man calls, and he goes in one final swing, and yep. That's where it ends. I wanted to give this a fair review, so I'm giving it a fair review, and I will say that this film is very much a mixed bag. Some elements are really good, some elements are really wonky, the pacing is slow as hell, and I don't know if it necessarily worked all the time. It did drag out a lot of scenes that didn't necessarily need to be as long as they were in the final film, but overall it is still of surprising quality. Given what happened in the middle of production. I think the two stories that they chose to combine into this film were really interesting, and they weaved it together fairly well. It is certainly not the best Spider-Man film, and certainly not the best Spider-Man fan film out there, but there are certain elements that are worth praise. I thought elements such as the music, the costumes, and some of the acting and VFX were really good and enjoyable and really amplified a lot of the scenes, but then there are certain things holding it back. The rest of the acting, for example, is kind of shaky and all over the place. And as mentioned previously, doesn't have the best pacing, so some scenes feel a bit drawn out, and this could be boring to a lot of viewers. And the constant flashbacks were definitely a choice. On the flip side of the constant flashbacks is the fact that they forget the show don't tell rule for many scenes, especially when it comes to certain characters that we don't get properly introduced to. The writing in some scenes were especially weird to me, like, I don't know, just felt off. And as good as the music was, the audio mixing, especially on some of the dialogue, really wasn't. Overall, I think I'm gonna have to give this a 6.5 out of 10, which for me means that it's not fantastic, but it's not bad either. It's just there. I can safely say that it is a Spider-Man film. I think there's 3 things that really hampered this film. 1, the weight of expectations. 2, all the shit that went down during production. And 3, the fact that this is the first big project from the director, so it has a lot of those notable characteristics from the first big project. But given the fact that this film got so many eyes on it and so much attention, that that's basically what people think about when they think of a Spider-Man fan project, and it kind of sucks that it has all that horrible stuff associated with it, because yeah, now when people think of Spider-Man fan projects, they're gonna think of that, which... But does this spell the end for Spider-Man fan projects, like a lot of people have thought? No, it doesn't! There's so many passionate and amazing fan projects that are currently being made that are getting overshadowed by all of this Lotus stuff, and that's kind of sad because they're right there and they're awesome and they're being made by actually good people. 2 that are on my radar and I'm particularly excited about are probably Spider-Man's The Adventures of Spider-Man and Daniel White Jr.'s The Ultimate Spider-Man. I highly recommend you go check out both of these projects because they're both looking fantastic so far. And honestly, right now, we need to support creative people more than ever. And with that, this is Kiwi signing off.